All right, everybody, we're live. Welcome back to the podcast. We are so glad to have you back with us for another fantastic episode. I'm joined today, as always, by my co-host Drew Laughlin. How you doing today, Drew?
Doing great. How's it going?
Doing awesome. We have a awesome guest with us today to sit and talk about his career, his life, and his faith walk. Paul Bobnock. He retired from the Air Force in 2020 after 24 years of service. He maintained and flew airplanes for both the Air Force and the Navy. He spent time in the F-15C model and then flew the A through F variant of the F-18. So lots of time supersonic. And above all that, he's a devout lover of Jesus, and he's here with us today to talk about his career. Thank you so much for joining us today, Paul.
Yeah, you bet. Good to be here. Thanks for having me, guys.
Yeah, we're excited, man. We're going to jump right in with just kind of your early life and where life started for you. Where did you grow up and kind of find your love for aviation?
Yeah, so I grew up, I was born in Minnesota. My parents were not military. Well, my dad was. He was a Marine, but it was well prior to me coming along. So he served for 3 years in the Marine Corps. And then I was born in Minnesota, lived there for 7 years, lived in South Dakota for 7 years-ish, roughly, and then moved to Texas. So I'm a transplant Texan. Don't hold that against me, but I love Texas, and I'm super happy to be here. So currently living in the Fort Worth area, just west of Fort Worth, and and then from there, graduated high school in Texas, and kind of goofed off for a few years, and then joined the Air Force after I realized that my path was not exactly what I anticipated it to be, and I needed something different in my life, some structure and some guidance. So, and the Air Force provided that.
Yeah, that's awesome. Was the aviation track in Air Force, was that always something that you had in mind, or was aviation just kind of something you decided to do off the rip?
So, no, to answer your question, it was not something that I had my sights focused on, when I was 7 years old, going, okay, I want to fly airplanes. The way it kind of went down was, so my grandfather was enlisted in the Air Force. He was an enlisted aviator, and he was also a engine mechanic back in the World War II era. I'm named after him. His first name was Paul as well. And so there was kind of this pull to the Air Force from that standpoint, but I never really committed, like I said, until a couple of years after high school. And what really pushed me into that was my mom actually got me a job in a factory building travel trailers. And it was in East Texas in Longview, 100-degree weather in the summers. And I'm just going to be straight with you. It was terrible. It was not something that I wanted to do for the rest of my life. So about a year into it, I went and talked to the recruiter, and I was like, I got to find something better. So I enlisted, and then I walked up to my mom, who was still working there actually in the sawmill, and I said, "Mom, I hate to disappoint you. I appreciate you getting me this job, but this is not what I want to do for the rest of my life." And she looked at me and she goes, "Well, what's your plan?" And I said, "Well, I enlisted in the Air Force." And she said, "Thank God." Because she did that on purpose to show me how bad that job really was. It just was not what I wanted. So enlisted in the Air Force, and kind of backtracking a little bit, I didn't apply myself in high school as much as I could have or should have. Because grades kind of came easy to me. So it was like, well, I'd rather put my efforts into working a job. And so I worked at a few different jobs while I was in high school. And then, so I didn't have any college money is the bottom line. So I thought, the Air Force will pay for my education. They will give me some structure. They will give me some training. And then I can either take that and go use it somewhere else, or I can continue in the Air Force. And honestly, my plan was never to stay as a lifer in the Air Force. My plan was to go in and get my degree and then get out and do something else. So got my first assignment to Offutt Air Force Base in Nebraska. in near Omaha, Nebraska. And I was assigned to the 45th Reconnaissance Squadron as a electrical and environmental technician. So basically, my job was to maintain the electrical and environmental systems on various 135 aircraft, Boeing 707 model aircraft. So I worked on EC, OC, WC, TC, RC 135s. I did that for 3 years, and I was deployed a lot. This was in the late 90s. So the internet and online education was not a thing. I tried to go to college when I was in Omaha, and it really just didn't work because I was deployed probably about 270-ish days a year away from Offutt. We had a
Wow.
pretty active real world mission. So I then moved down to Wichita Falls, Texas, got an assignment as an instructor for tech school or technical school. So basically, I was teaching young airmen the job that I was currently doing. And what that afforded me was the opportunity to go to school. So, kind of a long answer to your question, but basically, where I discovered that I wanted to get into aviation was, and this is totally a God thing. I took what's called the Air Force Officer Qualification Test, or AFOQT, and my only focus was to do well in the general studies portions of it. So math, science, grammar, that sort of thing. So I studied hard for all of those. I took, I got a study guide, and that was my focus. I didn't even know going into the test that there was a pilot and a nav section to the test. Had no idea. So I go in, I take the test, and that's it. I'm like, cool. I felt pretty good about it. I walked out and I was like, I think I got the grades I need to be an officer in the Air Force. I had been going to school at a satellite campus at Shepherd Air Force Base from Wayland Baptist University. And so I was a year from getting my degree at that point when I took the AFOQT. The education office counselor contacted me and said, "Hey, I got your scores back. Come on in, let's talk." So I go to his office, I sit down, and he goes, "Hey man, like your scores are pretty good. You're not going to have any problem becoming an officer if that's what you want to do. I do have a question." And I was like, "Yeah, go ahead, whatever." And he goes, "Have you ever thought about being a pilot?" And I was like, I mean, yeah, I'm in the Air Force. I work on planes. Yeah, the thoughts crossed my mind, but like it's never been a, hey, I need to be a pilot kind of thing. I said, "Why do you ask?" And he said, "Well, because you scored really, really well in the pilot and nav sections." And I'm like, okay. And I remember during the test, I remember going, I don't know what any of this is. Like there were pictures of ADIs, there were pictures of instruments in a cockpit, and it was like, and it was asking me questions about these instruments, and I had no clue really what I was looking at. I was just kind of like, yeah, that looks kind of like what I think it is, and so I just answered the question. He goes, "Well, you scored almost the max in both pilot and nav." And I was like, "Well, okay." He goes, "So I think we should put down that you want to be a pilot as your number one job and then be a nav as your number two." And I said, "Okay, that sounds great, man. Like I'm all in. If I
Yeah.
can be a pilot in the Air Force, why not?" So
Awesome.
that's kind of where it all started for me. I was 22 or 23 at the time. And so basically, maybe I was 24, but anyway, early 20s. And that's kind of where, yeah, I was like, wow, this could be a real thing. And so from that point, I started really now diving in, and the bug bit me, and I was like, aviation is kind of, I think this could be cool. And so yeah, that's kind of where it really happened, was my early 20s for me, for the aviation piece. Yeah. And then I put in an application for to become an officer. And when you do that in the Air Force, you also put down your job that you want to do, because you're already in. You get to pick your job and apply for being an officer at the same time. Whereas other avenues like ROTC or the academy, you go and then basically they kind of decide as you're there what your job's going to be, and you apply while you're there, kind of deal. So a little different. Yeah. And my wing commander walked in one day, and she was a brigadier general, walked in, and she was like, I think I was a staff sergeant at the time. Where's Staff Sergeant Bobnock? And I was like, oh, what did I do? And she said, are you, I heard you want to be a pilot. And I was like, oh my goodness. And she's like, yeah, you're going to go be a pilot. And I was like, what just happened? You know? So it was a really cool deal. Yeah. I was super pumped.
Yeah. As kind of like a dual track story, where in that whole line and process was faith in your life? Was God involved at that point in your life? Was he totally not involved? Where kind of growing up and into that first initial phase of aviation was your faith?
Yeah, Pierce, that's a great question. So, I was saved when I was 16. And it was because of a group of guys that I got involved with in Longview. I had moved up from Palestine, Texas to Longview, and befriended one of the guys that lived a block away. And basically, he and 4 or 5 other guys were in this group, and a couple of gals, one of which I'm married to now.
That worked out.
Well, sorta. That's kind of a story. That's a story in and of itself. It worked out now, yes, for sure. Did not work out back then. So, but yeah. So basically, Jason was his name, and he kind of pulled me into the circle. And at the time, I was man, I was lost. I was 15, about to be 16, and really not on a good path. And I distinctly remember I was in the backyard, and it was me and Jason and one of his other friends. I think it was Chad, if I remember correctly. And we're jumping on the trampoline, and a pretty foul word came out of my mouth when things didn't go the way I thought they would go on the trampoline. I busted it pretty hard, and I said something, and it was an F-bomb. And he's like, "Whoa, dude, we don't talk like that." And I was like, "What do you mean? I thought everybody talked like that, And then that's where he kind of revealed to me their walk and what they stood for and what was important to them. So I started going to church with these guys, and basically was saved shortly thereafter, accepted Christ. And yeah. So but fast forward into the military. Military is it's challenging for your walk. I'll just say that. Like,
Absolutely.
there's a lot of worldly pull in the military, and it's a very challenging career to be in, to maintain a walk with Christ. And so I was pulled off the path for a while. So when I got commissioned, or when I was accepted as to go to officer training school, and I was also accepted to be a pilot, or picked up to be a pilot, Christ was always a part of my life. As far as I guess he was kind of in the background. You'll hear a lot of people say, "Well, I kind of put Jesus on a shelf for a little while," and I'm not proud of that necessarily, because that's not where I want to be in my walk. I didn't want to be. I wish I hadn't been there at that time, but it's where I was. So I didn't really. My focus was not on Christ. It was on me as an individual in the world. Yeah. So that whole time, while I'm now very convinced that God had a hand in every bit of that, at the time I didn't even recognize it.
Yeah.
So where we left off was you got accepted as a pilot, and then what went from there? What was that process like, getting picked to fly your first
Man.
fighter jet? And
Yeah. So fast forward a little bit, I go to officer training school, I graduate, and there was a couple of challenges there at the school. I twisted my ankle like week one, pretty bad. I rolled it, and it was like the size of a softball. So not good for physical training and completing a physical fitness assessment at the end. There was a guy there named Pete Leha, who man, he was with me through that whole process, and we had to run a 2-mile run at the end of OTS, and he sacrificed his run time to get me across the finish line, because there's no way I could have done it otherwise.
wow.
I mean, I was literally on crutches for a few weeks at the beginning of this whole thing, and then I was determined to graduate because my pilot slot was at risk. there was a lot of other things at risk, and I was like, I have to get across the finish line. So that guy, I truly think God put him there too to get me across the line to basically get me graduated out of OTS. I probably did some significant damage to my ankle. I don't know, but and every once in a while it does bug me. But yeah, so I graduate, and then they have a pilot slot for me at Vance Air Force Base. So PCS, or I moved at the PCS is basically a permanent change of station. So I moved from Shepherd Air Force Base in Wichita Falls, Texas, up to Enid, Oklahoma, and I started pilot training like the month after I graduated officer training school. And basically, we do about a month-ish, somewhere about a month of academics, learning how to basically do just general aviation. And then you jump right into at the time, it was the T-37. So the T-37 Tweet, which is no longer flying. It's now the T-6 Texan that initial pilot training, or phase one of your pilot training, is what you fly. Flew that, then went on to fly the T-38. And I got selected to fly fighters at that point. So graduated fairly high in my class of T-37s. So I got the option of whether I wanted to fly fighters / bombers, or if I wanted to go to heavies. And so I, of course, picked fighters and the fighter bomber track. And I didn't know at the time if I was going to end up in a fighter or a bomber. It really depended on your performance in the T-38. So did the best I could. I actually, kind of funny, again, probably definitely a God thing, but I actually busted a couple of check rides in the T-38, which scared me, because I was like, man, I'm at risk of actually not even graduating. And it was pretty cool. My class, one of the phases that I busted was low level. And so I went out on a Saturday with my squadron commander and had to do the check ride by myself, no wingman, and basically my squadron commander was in my back seat of the T-38. So we take off, and my entire class was involved in basically helping me find the entry point to the low level, and they may or may not have gone out there and lit a barrel fire at the entry point of the.
That's great.
And so, boom, I go down the low level, and I get done, and my squadron commander is like, man, what are you doing? That was awesome. Like, why are you so distracted? And I'm like, well, I've got a 2-year-old daughter and a brand new baby boy at the house. And he's like, oh, that sucks. So yeah, I went through pilot training with a couple of youngins. Got married earlier when I was enlisted, and basically, yeah. So that was challenging, but graduated, and then of course I go to what we call assignment night, which is where you graduate pilot training and you get your jet that you're going to fly. And so I'm freaking out, of course, because I busted a couple check rides. So I'm thinking like I'm going to be flying, a bomber, and that's not what I want to do. And that was kind of when you went down the fighter bomber track, guys wanted to fly fighters. So what they did was they put several pictures up on the screen, and one was of a B-52, one was of like a T-37 Tweet, where you could stay on as an instructor at pilot training afterward, and what they called it a first assignment instructor pilot, or a FAPE. So that was up there, and then the F-15C was up there, and one other jet that I don't remember. And you turn around, you put the screen to your back, or your back to the screen, and basically you wait. And then your whole class is out there and everybody else, and then they throw the picture up there that you're going to fly, and everybody loses their mind. I turn around, it's the Eagle, and I'm like, you got to be kidding me. It's an F-15C on the screen. I'm like, what? And so, yeah. So then I shipped off to Tyndall Air Force Base. I went through F-15 qualification there for 9 months, and man, it was just unbelievable the first time going out to that jet. It was just unbelievable. I mean,
surreal,
it was
I'm sure.
It was surreal. It was surreal. Yeah, really cool.
That's awesome. I want to, before we jump into just like hearing about how that whole experience of just learning that airplane, I want to go back to just, pilot training. you busted a few check rides, things aren't going your way. How did you kind of overcome that? Because I know probably a lot of people that are listening to this, I mean, whether you're a pilot or not, you've probably been
Yep.
at a point, especially if you're in the aviation field, there always seems to be a training course to a check ride, whether it's maintenance or flying or, whatever. And there's always that point where there's like one thing you can't get down, or it's just plaguing you, or one maneuver that just can't seem to just figure out. Where did you go mentally, and just how did you overcome experiencing failure and kind of seeing, well, I may lose, my slot if I don't figure
Yep.
this out. And, obviously you did.
Yep. So, like I said, my faith wasn't as strong then as it is now. But I do remember talking to God, praying, and it wasn't prayer like, I wasn't down on my knees, eyes closed, bowing down. I was just talking to him, and I was like, God, just help me figure this out. Help me get through this, and I really leaned on the guys in my class to help me get through, and just hit the books, and really, really just knuckle down to go, okay, this is not. So for me, the way I was raised, my father was he was very positive, and like failure was not an option. Basically, he always taught me to just overcome whatever obstacle was in my way, overcome adversity, and just work hard, and so that's what I did. So I buckled down, I worked hard, I studied, and basically it it paid off. And then of course there was a huge pull there. I think definitely God was walking through that with me as a Christian, but I guess I just didn't put my faith in him enough, or as much as I should have. Maybe that's the
Yeah.
better word. Not necessarily enough, but again, I was a Christian, I was saved, but I just didn't I didn't rely on him as much as I should have, and I kind of relied on myself more at that time to get myself through that problem, as opposed to relying on the Lord and allowing him to carry me through. And so that's kind of when I look back and I go, man, yeah, I failed in that regard, but then again, it got me where I am today with my walk with Christ. And so I don't think it's a failure, and I don't think that Jesus looks at it as a failure either. Of course he doesn't, but yeah. And so that, to me, it was just hard work, and that's what I knew. I knew that as an enlisted man. I knew that that's how I got where I was, through hard work
Yeah.
and determination and grit.
Yeah. Well, I think for a lot of us too, God honors that hard work when we are willing to buckle down and say, hey, I'm going to get through this. I'm going to figure this out. And I think probably looking back, you can probably go, yeah, I can see where the Lord was with me here and there, and
Oh yeah.
lit the fire at the entry of the low level track and helped me figure it out. And,
Yeah.
and
Yep.
we got it done and moved on.
That's right. That's right.
So kind of moving on, we're walking out to the F-15. This is the start of a new phase of your career. How does this
Definitely.
phase of your career go?
Yeah, so do pretty well in the training program at Tyndall, and get so what happens at the end of that is they give you a choice of assignments, basically, and they say, hey, where do you want to go? And at the time there were 6 really, really good F-15C assignments. Like, none of the Eagle assignments in the Air Force were bad locations. Eglin Air Force Base, Florida, which is in Fort Walton Beach. Incidentally, that was my first assignment. Anchorage, Alaska, Kadena Air Base in Okinawa, Japan, Mountain Home in near Boise, Idaho. I'm trying to think of the other ones. There were a couple of others as well, but bottom line is none of those assignments were bad. Lakenheath, which is in England, and so, like, compared to other fighter platforms in the Air Force, like the F-16, they had some not great locations. Like Cannon Air Force Base, New Mexico, is in, I think it's at Clovis, New Mexico, and it's just, there's nothing there. It's like, what's going on? But so I put down Alaska, I think, as my number one choice, and I put down Eglin, or Florida, as my second choice. And I end up getting Alaska. And then this other guy in my class got Eglin. And so he basically came to me one day and he was like, man, I was talking to my dad last night and he really thinks like that I ought to go overseas. And Alaska is considered like it's called OCONUS or overseas CONUS. So basically it's like you're overseas, but you're still in the United States. And he goes, he told him, yeah, Mike, you should really go to Alaska if you can, you know. So he comes to me the next day and he says, hey, would you be interested in swapping assignments with me? Well, I had talked to some friends of mine and they were like, dude, you need to go to Florida. That'd be like the best assignment ever. So told me all about it and everything. And I was like, yeah, I think I could swap with you. You know, you can go to Alaska. I'll go to Eglin. I really didn't care. And so we swapped and that was a whole thing. You could do that. And so we swapped. And the funny thing is, the next day he came back to me and he was like, man, I think I really want to go to Florida. And I was like, too late. We already made the deal. I'm going to Florida. So I go to Florida and, you know, I stay in Florida. I just move up the panhandle to Fort Walton Beach. And that's my first Eagle assignment. And so in your first assignment, you get there, you're a brand new guy. You guys know, like you're just wet behind the ears and you have no idea what you're doing, right? So I get there and you go through what they call MQT or mission qualification training. And basically they put you through all of the phases of the F-15 mission set. And then at the end of that, you are considered mission ready or MR. And basically you know just enough to be dangerous in the F-15, but you're still, you know, you could go to war is the bottom line. So you could go to war on someone's wing, on a flight lead's wing. So that was pretty cool. And then at that time is when you get your fighter pilot call sign. So I had graduated and or gotten through MQT, went out on a very large scale exercise on the East Coast where I was number 12 of a 12 ship of F-15s. Kind of crazy, right? So I'm looking out, I'm going, you got to be kidding me. Like I'm looking at a wall of F-15s off my left side, 11 of them. And basically I used a little bit too much gas on a couple of the intercepts and ended up not being able to get back to Eglin. Couldn't get to the tanker, couldn't get gas, couldn't get high to preserve gas. So we had to divert into Tyndall Air Force Base. Couldn't make it 45 miles farther to Eglin. So my flight lead, who's also my flight commander, is like not happy with me at this time, you know, but we land, we sort it all out and we get to fly another sortie and go out over the Gulf and do some dogfighting. But as a result, I get the call sign burner because I just used too much of my left hand, you know, and I burned like a lot more gas than I should have. So yeah, so that's where it started. And then I was burner for, well, I still am. That's what I still go by at Lockheed. Guys call me burner at work. So pretty cool. That's kind of one of the neat things about being a fighter pilot is you get a fighter pilot call sign. So it's kind of neat.
Yeah.
And then I go through another couple of years at Eglin, and usually our assignments are 3 years long, and then basically you get up to a point where you're put up for another assignment. And so I at that point tried to go to Alaska. God was keeping me from Alaska for some reason because it didn't work out that time either, and I ended up going to Japan. So, but
Oh, wow.
yeah. So then I got to go fly Eagles in Japan.
Yeah, well, looking at that bow in the back of your office there, you're probably keeping you focused on work. Go to Alaska, you'd probably be pulling that bow out a little too much.
I would have. Yeah, probably. Yep. So that's one of my loves too is archery. I love archery. So, yeah. But yeah. So then I end up in Japan, and I end up flying over there for 3 years. Go to weapons school, the Air Force fighter weapons school, and graduate out of that. And that's kind of what got me later on down the road was my ticket to go to Top Gun and be an instructor out there as an Air Force guy in a pool of Navy, if that makes sense. So
yeah, I didn't even realize that was possible or you could do that.
You and me both. Like I had no idea. Yeah, when I got the assignment, I was like, "What? What am I doing? I'm going to Lemoore Naval Air Station. I don't even know what a Eagle guy does at Lemoore. Like I don't know what I'm going to be doing, you know." And so, but yeah, that was kind of how I ended up there. Was I was a weapons officer in the Air Force, which was a prerequisite for doing the Top Gun gig.
What was that experience like as a Top Gun instructor? Just Top Gun as a whole? What is it?
Man, it was
This is
so the movie is not what it's all cracked up to be. I think the second movie was better as far as a little bit more realism, but still a lot of Hollywood. But man, it was a grind. It was an absolute grind, especially as a guy who came from another platform. I transitioned to the F-18 from the F-15, and also had to learn all of the Navy tactics at the same time, and then learn how to like speak Navy, which the Air Force and the Navy, it's very different. So it's like learning a foreign language. But it was a really, really cool experience. I met some of the greatest people there. Yeah, it was awesome. I loved it. At the time it was difficult because I was, I was one of one in the Top Gun staff, as an Air Force exchange guy, and so, that was challenging.
Yeah, I've coming into this, Top Gun being on your resume, I have a gazillion questions because Top Gun guys are awesome. But
Yeah.
at Aetos, one of our core values is to pursue each avenue of aviation with biblical excellence. We have Philippians chapter 4, verse 8 attached to that core value. Obviously, Top Gun, you're at the cutting edge. Everyone there is the best in the room. And basically, that is a school that stands for excellence. What were some things that they practiced and maybe instated as a culture that just bred excellence in what they did?
Yeah. So, you're absolutely spot on, man. I would say both the Air Force weapons school. I said fighter weapons school earlier. It's no longer known as the fighter weapons school. It's just known as the weapons school because all of the various platforms in the Air Force have a weapons school or a weapons squadron there. Top Gun and the Air Force Weapons School are very similar in that regard, from a standpoint of excellence. Um, it's demanded, right? And so you're at the pinnacle of your tactical capabilities when you go through those schools. So yeah, and it was interesting because as a guy coming in flying the Hornet and the Super Hornet, I got there with like 50 hours in the Super Hornet, and then like 5 in the Hornet, in the Legacy Hornet. And so I'm going, how am I supposed to be tactically excellent in this platform when I've only got 50 hours? There's other guys coming in, they've got 300 or 400 hours in the jets, and they're going through the course, and I'm their instructor. But I think that, it wasn't necessarily entirely about how good you were in the airplane. It was more about how do you teach these individuals? At the Air Force Weapons School, they have 3 key attributes that, I kind of try to live by now as a Christian as well. And that is be humble, be approachable, and be credible. So you need to know, and so for me, the credibility piece was the piece that I was struggling with at Top Gun because I didn't feel like I had the credibility to be an instructor there. That was one of the things that I internally struggled with. I felt like I was decently humble and I felt like I was approachable, and guys, they would want to talk to me, but the credibility was what, was difficult. As time went on, I got more and more credible in the jet, or at least I felt like I did. And so that helped. And toward the end, I really felt comfortable being there, and I felt comfortable speaking up and trying to impart what the whole reason I was there, which was to exchange information about how we fought in the Eagle community and in the Air Force, as well as how that translated into the Navy. And then also try to take some of that Navy stuff, that Navy tactical excellence, and bring it back to the Air Force. So I felt like I was able to do both when I went back to the Air Force, which was really cool. So what an opportunity and a position to be in. I thought it was just really incredible.
Yeah, that's awesome. We may add that to the website. Be humble, be approachable, be coachable. I love that.
Those are great.
Credible, right? And so when you look at it from a standpoint of like biblical, and that's what I try to apply to my life now biblically, is be humble, right? As a Christian, be approachable. Guys should want to come and talk to you. That smile, just the way you live your life, be that light, right? But be credible as well. Know the
Yeah.
scripture. And so once again, I find myself in a position where, man, I don't know scripture as well as I would like. I don't think any Christian does, but I try, and I stay in the word, and I try to be credible so that when somebody does ask me about my faith, I have the answers and I'm prepared,
Yeah.
but yeah, it's a great way to live your life.
Yeah. So as you're in Top Gun, obviously this is later part of your career. You mentioned having a family a lot earlier in your career. So obviously your
Yep.
family is growing, and
Yep.
where is your faith walk during all this?
So, man, like I said earlier, being in the military is challenging from a faith perspective, and then to add to that, being a fighter pilot is even more challenging. It's just the career field itself. It's a lot like being a firefighter or being a cop. There's a lot of crass, crude stuff that is in that community. I mean, it's just part of it, and so trying to figure out how to navigate that, it was challenging, and I didn't do a great job with it. I'll be honest, using or applying my faith while I was in those positions. My kids are grown now; they're 25 and 23. I'm divorced, and I'm remarried now, and so going full circle, what I was talking about earlier, my high school sweetheart, we didn't talk for 22 years, and now we've been married for coming up on 8 years. So we reconnected, in fact, while I was at Top Gun, and that was really cool. Also a God thing, because at the time that I was at Top Gun, my walk, if I were to look back from 2016, 2015 back to 16 years old, so probably whatever that equates to, however many years that is, a couple of decades, my walk was not very strong. I'll just be honest. I was not in the word at all. I knew that I had that pull, like, I wanted to do good. I wanted to be good. I wanted to be a good Christian, but I didn't like practice it the way that I am now. And so um, I truly think so. I got divorced, and that was in 2015. And then my now wife reached out to me in 2016. She was like on Facebook of all things, and she said, "Hey, how's it going? I haven't talked to you in a while. How's the family? How's the kids?" Had no idea that I was divorced, And I'm like, "Well, things aren't exactly great." And I said, "How are you?" And she goes, "Huh. Sounds familiar. Things aren't exactly great." And neither one of us, our life was not going in the way that we had hoped that it would. I'm a fighter pilot. I'm doing all these awesome things. I'm a Top Gun instructor, and probably at the lowest point as far as, um, I guess from a faith perspective, right?
Sure.
I've got everything. I mean, like
Yeah.
you guys said it, right? I'm a fighter pilot. I'm a Top Gun. Everything is going my way, or at least it should be, but my faith is not where it needs to be. And so my life was not on the track that I had hoped for, and it was not on the track that God wanted it to be me to be on. And so I think that He brought my ex-girlfriend from high school and me back together to grow with Him and grow toward Him. And I will tell you that from the second that happened, yes, there were challenges. There were definitely ebbs and flows, but our walk basically has just skyrocketed together as a couple for the Lord. And so now I would say, 2016, 2017 was, when we started kind of getting back together. We got married in 2017 in November. And from there, it has just been like vertical, straight up, afterburners lit for the Lord. And dude, it's just been awesome ever since. We're now fully active in our church. I preach on occasion, which is mind blowing to me. I recently got ordained, and she leads Bible studies. We have a Bible study that we lead in our house. It's just awesome, and we talk
Yeah.
about the Lord all the time. And so my faith is the strongest it's ever been now. But
That's incredible.
looking back on my past, not so much,
Yeah.
not so much.
So I'm curious, you said that for, being in the military and pilots, but especially fighter pilots, it's just very hard to be strong in your faith and to
Yeah.
prioritize your walk with Christ when you're in that position. I'm curious, what would you either do differently or just advise other people who may be in that position, whether it's in the military or, maybe they're just at the pinnacle of their career doing something else, flying other jets, whatever it is. How would you, what advice would you give them to just prioritize their walk, and what would they do differently?
That's a great question, Drew. So I think that, you got to stand for something, right? There's a country song. Trying to think who sings it now. I can't think of the top of my head, but basically, you have to stand for something or you'll fall for everything. And so, my advice would be that if you're in that position where, whether you're a fighter pilot, whether you're a fireman, whether you're a cop, whether you're in civilian aviation, because I know that that's tough as well. You're a commercial pilot or whatever the case may be. What do you stand for? What is it that is your guiding light? What is it that drives you and motivates you? And if that's not Christ, then you're doing it wrong, in my opinion. But you are going to be pulled hard as a Christian, even harder than you might get pulled if you were not a Christian or a non-believer. But you've got to stand firm, and the best way that I think you can do that is to surround yourself with individuals that are of like mind. And what I mean by that is, so I on my last assignment before I retired in Japan, like I said, we were just on the rocket ship for the Lord, and I met a couple of guys. They are, one of them is call signs Alamo, one of the strongest Christians that I've ever met. He and I got basically he was a young wingman when he showed up. And actually, we met at Klamath Falls, Oregon, when I was getting requalified in the F-15, and he was actually getting qualified in the F-15 as a brand new wingman. Same thing I did at Tyndall Air Force Base back in 2003. But he and I basically worked together as Christians to build a network of other Christians that could get together, do Bible studies, lean on each other, form that bond as believers in that environment that wasn't really conducive to Christ. And what that did is it really gave us that ability to lean on each other. There was a time, so you deploy a lot, whether it be as a fighter pilot or otherwise in the military, you deploy a lot. And when you deploy, things happen. Guys push it up, they go out, party, have a good time, and we were in Alaska, and there was a scenario. We all went out to dinner, and then after that, some guys were pushing to a location that you could tell some other dudes didn't want to go to. And I think I was the DD at the time. And I basically said, well, here's the deal. I'm not going to tell you guys what to do. I will happily drop you off there if that's where you want me to take you. I'm not going in. And in fact, I'm going to head back to the base. I'll come get you as your DD whenever you're done. Just give me a call, or I'll happily wait in the parking lot, But by me saying, hey, I'm going to head back to the base, there were other guys, other fighter pilots, young guys that were very impressionable that basically said, oh, wow, well, if he's doing it as a senior ranking guy, then I can do it too, and it empowered them to basically get out of that situation that could have otherwise pulled them away from their faith to do something that they didn't want to do. That wasn't that wasn't Christ-like. So having that influence, having that brotherhood, having that camaraderie to be able to bond together and basically navigate with strength in numbers, I guess is the best way to put it. So my advice would be seek out those individuals that are like-minded, and you know who they are. You can find them easily. It's the guys that aren't singing along to the crass songs. They're just standing there in the bar and they're in the room, but they're not really participating. You seek those guys out, and then basically you form that bond with them, and you move forward that way. And it's just, as you know, strength in numbers, right? As a fighter guy, we never go into combat with more than or with less than at least a 2-ship, preferably a 4-ship of Eagles, because that was the basic fighting formation. You had wingmen, you had guys that would help you in a bad situation and bail you out. Check your 6, keep the demons off of you. And so that's my advice, is basically strength in numbers.
Man, that's incredible advice of someone who's had the career that you've had and been in the positions that you've been in as a Top Gun instructor, F-15 pilot, F-18 pilot. And you're saying that the best way or the best thing that you can do to not only strengthen your walk with Christ, but just, keep a security in there and keep from getting pulled off this path. Like you say, it's so easy to do. And the best thing that you can do is be around like-minded Christians and other people who are walking the path with you. That's powerful.
Yeah, definitely. Of course, you're going to stay in the scripture, obviously, right? Find a church home, all of the things that we should do as Christians, but the strength in numbers. Where 2 or more are gathered, so there am I, right?
Mm-hmm.
And
That's right.
Yeah.
That's what it's all about. So
That's awesome. Just curious, as you can kind of look back and, you're actively serving a role at Lockheed Martin and can look back on your 24 years of military. Are there any lessons you learned in aviation that are that you've been able to look as you've grown in your faith walk and go, oh, these are things I learned flying, or even as when you were starting in the Air Force, not flying, but around the aviation world, you can go, hey, that's directly applicable to the Bible, and that's directly applicable to how I live my life as a Christian.
Well, so it's interesting. The environment that I'm in at Lockheed, I'm surrounded by fighter pilots, and so I'm kind of in the same environment that I've been in for the last, now coming up on 30 years. Well, maybe not 30, because I was only in the fighter pilot community for 19 in the Air Force, so probably about 20, 25 years. But it's how they translate. I think the biggest thing is, I don't know. We were studying Philippians last night, actually, in my house, with a small group, and it's a home group. We call it Ranch House Gatherings. I go to a cowboy church, which is pretty cool.
Awesome.
But and so the thing about Philippians, and we're just on chapter 1 right now, but it's the book of joy. But then you look at how Paul is basically being persecuted for his faith in Philippians, right? He's in jail and he's writing this epistle to the Philippian people, and basically he's telling them, like, whether I live or die, it doesn't really matter. He's telling his guards, the guardsmen that are guarding him in prison, you can kill me, that's fine. I'll go be with Christ. I basically win. Or you can let me live, and then I continue to spread the gospel. So either way, I'm good, And obviously, being killed is pretty extreme, but like, you can cut me down as a person or as a Christian, and that's fine, because I know what I stand for. You can also listen to me, and basically you can hear me out, and I can spread the gospel as well. So either way, I'm doing what I think that I'm challenged to do by Christ, and that is to be a disciple and be an evangelist. So had a really cool opportunity. So in my job, I get to travel primarily to Italy and Japan, it's a really rough deal. But
Sounds like it.
That
it's
sounds
it's
terrible.
it's absolutely terrible. But I had an opportunity over there to talk to several people while I was over there about my faith. And you think Italy, you're like, I mean, everybody in Italy, they're Catholics, right? It's a big Catholic community, and very religious community. But one of the guys I work with over there, he's not a believer, and I had an opportunity to sit down with him and witness to him about my belief and about Christ. And I feel like I planted a seed. I don't know for sure, but so there's opportunities there that arise that I never thought would be possible. You know, when I was in the military, I thought, I would never be able to do that. I'm not going to witness to anybody. That's scary stuff. you know, so it affords me that opportunity for sure, which is pretty cool.
Yeah. Yeah. As we're kind of wrapping up here, I kind of want to shift a little bit to Aetos, and we're so appreciative of you coming on and giving some of your time. But it was so cool that you talked about you had a group of guys in the Air Force that was trying to create a community of believers to lean on each other and have community where you can go and share your faith and talk about your faith with other people. And that is quite literally exactly what we're trying to do as
Yeah.
our organization is small and beginning to grow.
Yep.
I kind of want to just pose the question to you. How would you like to see Aetos grow into the aviation sphere? And do you have a message to anyone that might be listening to this on getting involved and how important it is to find those people to create community and have biblical conversation with people that can help lift you up and further you down in your faith walk?
Sure. So I think that what's cool about what you guys are doing is it's not just focused on civilian aviation, right? You've only had a few podcasts, and you're pretty small right now. But as you bring in various walks from different aviation circles, I guess I'll call it, you have the ability to influence so many different places, right? So you've got a little bit of influence in the military, potentially, right? And so maybe a dude is in the military, whether he's an aviator or not, it doesn't matter. Listens to this podcast and he's like, "Holy cow, that's cool!" And then he goes, "You know what? Like, I'm a Christian," or maybe he's not. Maybe he goes, "I want to know more about that," or maybe he's like, "Oh, that flying stuff sounds cool. I'd like to do that." So I think that as you grow, what you'll find is that you are a lot like the military in some regards. So one of the cool things about our little community that we created, there were 5 or 6 of us in that little group in Okinawa. None of us are there anymore. So I'm in Fort Worth. Alamo is over in, I think, North Carolina. His brother is down. I never even met his brother except for on the phone. He's over in Arizona. You've got one of the guys is out in Hawaii, but we still talk on a fairly regular basis. But now it's kind of that shotgun blast where those individuals have gone out and they've been able to have an influence in their individual communities. And so I think what you guys are doing with Aetos. That's
It's actually it's a Greek word. It's pronounced
okay.
Aetos, and I don't know if you know this.
Aetos.
It means eagle in Greek. So as an ex eagle
No,
an eagle driver, this is
yes.
a group for you.
That's awesome, man. That's awesome. But so as you interact with people, either on your podcast or folks listening to your podcast, you're going to have influence, right? And then those individuals are going to go out and they're going to hopefully spread the gospel. And hopefully it's in environments that maybe they're challenged or feel not empowered to voice their opinion about being a Christian, because that environment is not exactly conducive to that type of discussion. But this type of podcast could potentially empower guys to feel like they can do that, or just they listen to one podcast and they go, man, that guy stood up for something that was right and then what he believed in, his belief. And so if he can do it, I can do it, And so I think that's something that's really cool that you guys are doing as well. And you'll find that as you grow and as you do more of these podcasts, you're going to reach, you have the potential to reach millions of people, which is really amazing.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, that's what we're excited about. And that's the message that we want to go out is,
Yeah.
hey, anyone and everyone in aviation, from the kid who looks up in the sky and goes, hey, that's an airplane and that's cool, to a Top Gun instructor or an airline captain or an AMP mechanic. We want everyone to be involved. We want, hopefully our logo can be on some military patches someday, and,
Hey, that'd be cool. Yeah.
travel bags on the airlines, and we want to
Heck
cover
yeah.
all the bases. So, man, Burner, Paul, Bobnock, we really appreciate you being with us and sharing some of your stories and giving us a lot of wisdom. I'm definitely going home with a lot of notes. Be humble, be approachable, be credible. Man, thank you so much for being here.
Absolutely, man. I enjoyed it. All right, fellas, let's go to the Lord in prayer. Father God, we just thank you for the time and the opportunity to spend conversing with these guys about their mission, what they feel led to do by you. And Lord, I just pray that you would be with them as they embark on this journey. Help them to grow this network. Help them to be just a huge light for you in this dark world, Lord. Thank you for the time that we got to spend together and the conversation that we had. As we go our separate ways this evening, God, I just pray that you would be with us and allow us to be disciples and evangelists, God, and just find those individuals that we need to lead to you. Help us with that. Give us the strength in the words, and help us to be humble, help us to be approachable, and help us to be credible in your word, God. I ask all these things in Jesus' name. Amen.
Amen.
Amen.